For the last month, I've been sharing with you my journey across ancient Ireland, all while trying to answer this question of what is the spirit of Ireland? But before my Irish adventures even began, I spent some time with someone who was asking this very same question, but with her home country of Wales. So in this video, I will share with you her story, perspective, and experience with Welsh spirituality, all while she takes us to a very special place that many may not know about. We will also share with you some of the history around this lesser-known country within Northern Europe, with its own unique language and deep mythology that still survives within the landscape and the people today.
We are embarking on a journey to Teran Den, which is a very, very old spring. This place is quite hidden away. Not many people know about it, but I work a lot with water in both health, wellness, and the sacred aspect of water. Massively fascinated in how the stories that we tell ourselves about nature portray how we respect it.
Who are you? Why are you in my van right now?
I'm Stella, guys. Nice to meet you. I am a content creator and YouTuber as well. I'm massively passionate and fascinated with spirituality and consciousness. I'm what you'd call a psychonaut, so I like to explore the realms of consciousness through anything from meditation to plant medicine to creativity and art. And I began my spiritual journey with a psychedelic mushroom trip, a psilocybin mushroom from the land around here, actually, within the higher hills and mountains that you'll see. You'll find this mushroom that really woke me up to the nature of the universe. And for years, I was deep within the New Age spiritual world, definitely got stuck there a little bit. And I have come out of it and wanted to explore my own ancestry.
Well, something that's really interesting about Wales is, I guarantee you if I did like a poll of Americans, is that most people wouldn't realize that Wales is like one of the United Kingdoms, is one of the countries within that title. It's something, a lot of people just, swap around the term English, British, the UK, and not realize that Welsh is an identity within that as well. And is its own language, it's its own history, its own mythology. And it's really fascinating how little the rest of the world is told about Wales. Wales is often debated on whether or not it's a country or a principality of the United Kingdom. And I must say, after traveling through and meeting some of its people, I would agree that Wales is very different from England. And the fact that they still have their own surviving language that is completely different than English, I will definitely say that Wales has earned its own identity as a country, much like its sibling to the north, Scotland. Today, there are roughly 3 million people living in Wales, with an impressive 17+% of them still speaking their native language of Welsh. This is much higher than the 1% who still speak the Scottish language of Gaelic in Scotland still today. I also need to take a moment right now in the voiceover section of this video to say, if I mispronounce anything, I'm so sorry, but Welsh is a very hard language to learn and pronounce at the same time, especially when doing this research. So I apologize for anything I mispronounced. I'm trying my best. So let's continue on, but my apologies beforehand. And now, here's a brief history of Wales. Wales has been inhabited by humans as early as 29,000 years ago. Now, around the time of the last ice age, Wales and Ireland were actually connected via a land bridge, as they're only around 70 miles away, but obviously now there's the Irish Sea that separates them. And so much of the story of the countries are very connected, and so you're going to see a lot of commonalities between ancient Wales and ancient Ireland. And much like the story of the rest of the Anglo-Celtic Isles, you have the Neolithic period that comes around at the same time of the Neolithic tombs and the structures built by the monument builders. And this story is very similar in Wales. You're going to find many different Neolithic structures around the Welsh coastline, including tombs, burial cairns, and ancient hill forts. In general, when we look at sites such as this Neolithic tomb here, it's part of a larger culture that existed here long before the names of Wales, Britain, England, Scotland, all this existed. And the culture that would build structures like this, built structures across Europe, across the Isles. And it is always impressive to see them because there are so many commonalities between these structures across a really vast area of the ancient world. The monument builders spread across known Europe and built these structures for thousands of years. Now, with many different iterations and evolutions, in theory, the same people that built Stonehenge, the same people that built Clavacarans, the same people that built Newgrange were related very closely to the people that built this here in Wales. And of course, the sad thing with many of these is that we really don't know the gods that they worship, the ceremonies that would have been done here, the rituals performed. We do know that they had some kind of interest in the sun and the lunar cycles and the solar cycles, as many of these sites open up to the east and close out to the west. This in particular has the eye in the center here that allows you to look through it and look towards the setting sun. I'm not sure at the time of filming this segment here if that lines up to the winter or the summer solstice, but this is a very common thing. Newgrange, just across the water here, just across the Irish Channel, is lined up to the winter solstice, so the sun enters the tomb. Now, this site in particular would have been covered with earth at some point. What we're seeing right here would have been under the earth. And so it's kind of hard to picture what this would have been like. We would have had remains in here more than likely, and then it has the eye in the center here. So perhaps this was entering light into the central chamber during the winter or the summer solstice. Again, I'm not sure at the time of filming this. But regardless, even though the Welsh identity is very different now to the identity that would have existed at the time of building this, it still adds to the landscape. It still adds to the magic of this place, adds to the mythology and the mythos. And it's just one of the things that I absolutely love about traveling across the Anglo-Celtic Isles. I think I said that properly. It's just one of my favorite things, is going through and seeing and feeling the ancient magic of this land, including here in Wales. The story of Wales remains largely shrouded in mystery due to the lack of written source material until the time of the Romans, where most people actually know a story from Wales, as Wales is the stage for the last stand of the Druids at the Isle of Anglesey. After the fall of Rome, little comes out of this land again until the advent of Christianity. Wales was much less impacted by the Anglo-Saxons migrating into England, as the Anglo-Saxons were mostly focused on the east coast of the Anglo-Celtic Isles. And so it is often said that the true Brittonic people, the last of them, actually survived in Wales, simply because the Germanic people moving in did not go much into the Welsh countryside. Now, having said that, the Welsh actually converted into Christianity quite early. Just as we mentioned previously, the Irish have a huge influence on Wales, even going into their time into Christianization, as the Irish monks were actually coming over and converting the Welsh people very early on into history. However, much like Ireland, the Welsh pagan beliefs were very fairly ingrained into the culture, and many of the beliefs that were been held in the past survived even into this modern era. Wales also shares a similar story of Scotland and Ireland in the sense of the western coast being invaded by the Vikings during the Viking Age, leading to the Welsh briefly uniting under a single king and as one nation in 1055. This would be very shortly lived. After a very long conflict with the English, England would actually take over Wales in the year 1283. By the 15th century, the Welsh did actually lead a successful revolt against the English, leading to a period of independence lasting till the year 1535 or 1542, when they were annexed back into England. Wales was a very popular place for English nobility to take up estates, which is one of the reasons there are so many castles still existing in Wales today. Sadly, the story of Wales is not a very uplifting one leading into the Industrial Revolution, as the rich earth of Wales was exploited by mining companies, and the story is very similar to the American Appalachians. Many towns would grow due to the increased mining trade, but were then quickly plummeted into depressions when the mines would run dry or the companies would move out, leaving the people destitute. Much like Scotland and Ireland, there are many people who believe that Wales today should be an independent country separately from the UK, particularly in the north where the language and beliefs of Wales are still strongly preserved. While Ireland did eventually win its independence in the 1900s, Scotland is still fighting for it, and much like Wales, the story of independence is not known to us today and how it will end. I will say, again, in comparison to Scotland, Wales does a much better job at preserving its history, culture, and language, and that could still be seen in my brief time spent in Wales filming with Stella. But speaking of that, let us return to my time spent with Stella in the Welsh countryside. And the question I have for you, Stella, is now that we're walking through the beautiful hills and the rain of Wales, what does Wales feel like to you? What is like the spiritual presence of Wales?
The spiritual presence of Wales, to me, feels like misty mountains and being held by warm drinks and looking out over, for me now where I live, a valley. But I'm originally from Cardiff. I'm originally a city girl, so my perspective has massively changed. It feels different depending on the day. And it's just
Does it follow kind of like the seasons? Like it feels different with the seasons and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So like my spiritual practice is just kind of being in nature. It's not too wild, man. It's just kind of immersing myself in, like we are now, in the rain, on a country road, off to visit a spring, to really get to know what the natural elements are like, because being a city girl, I was just surrounded by like tall buildings and houses. So for me, the spirituality in Wales is simply just getting out into the wild.
So, kind of what we were talking about in the way here. What are you taught about Wales in school? I mean, like you were saying, you didn't learn Welsh in school necessarily. So, what is taught about the land here and the mythos or anything like that? Like the stories of the Mabinogi actually talked about, for instance.
So where I'm from in South Wales, it's massively industrialised. We weren't taught the stories and the myths of the Mabinogi, which is a sacred text written in the 1300s. So this is one of the oldest texts that we have in terms of spiritual mythology. But it wasn't written by our pagan ancestors. It was written by Christian monks who I believe were holding the wisdom of the Druids, the wisdom that was lost for so many years. And in school we weren't taught it, but
You weren't taught your own mythology
I
in school.
wasn't taught my own mythology in school in South Wales. I've had to relearn it now. But up in North Wales, they are taught that mythology, and I'm lucky to be friends with many people from those areas. So there are characters within this book, the Mabinogi, that are magical characters. They're part human, part divine. They go through shape-shifting experiences, very shamanic experiences, very prophetic experiences. There's potions and herbal cauldrons and magical... It's just a very magical and mystical world here in Wales, to be honest.
Especially with the rain that is now sideways.
Yeah, if I was going to in a few words describe Welsh spirituality, it would be mystical, magical and hidden.
The Mabinogion or the Mabinogi is a collection of unique Welsh mythological stories that were written in around the 14th century. The works are clearly influenced by Christianity, however bear many markers of the pagan origins of the original Welsh beliefs, possessing many moments of magic and godlike characters. The Mabinogion is often put together in the wider branches of Celtic mythology along with the Irish legends. Most interestingly though, the Welsh stories bear an earlier and different look at the legends of King Arthur and his court. Many scholars have debated the authenticity of these stories as they're very complex and their comprehensibility is very different than other written oral stories.
And here in Wales, we have got the fairy faith. It's an ancient faith in which people believed that the natural world, these valleys, these hills, these forests, were inhabited by beings that lived within a world in between worlds, which we call Annwn or Annwfn. So this isn't the other world in the same way that it is in Ireland, because Annwn actually translates to the inner deep world. It's not other, it's not separate than, it is within the depths of reality in a sense, which is what I believe it to be, which is where Arwen comes from. Arwen being this divine source of inspiration in modern Druidry. You know, you've got the 3 lines and the 3 dots. So these fairies that live within the natural landscape dwell within other worlds, or for us, the Annwn. And we are
Through
going
the
up
mystical
here.
gate that keeps away the sheep.
Yeah, we're following the Yellow Bunny Trail.
Oh, we're on the Yellow Bunny Trail. People who watch this content very often will notice this theme of the elves, of the fae folk, of the fair folk. This is coming up more and more. Almost every single Northern European culture I explore and learn about has this concept within it, which I think is really powerful and really telling of what people believed in the ancient past. And so if you're looking for something individually yourself, no matter where you are in the world, connect to the fair folk, connect to the fae, the elves, the brownies, whatever you want to call them. Almost everywhere in the world, this idea exists. Is there any way people in Wales would have connected to these people?
Yeah, so in Wales, they're called the Tylwyth Teg, which means the fair folk. Which kind of tells us that they were fair, kind and nice, but many of them weren't so nice, and you had to be careful not to get on their bad side. So there are certain things that you would and wouldn't do. So for example, with the bwbachod, they are a house goblin or a house fairy. These are very kind, but they can be mischievous, and they're going to treat you very, very they're going to treat you with kindness if you leave out milk and honey for them, if you leave out offerings for them.
I love how there's just horses back here. I didn't notice them because we've been talking.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Creating,
Oh, hi.
filming, it's actually being aware of what's around.
I believe this captures the spirits of Wales very nicely. They're eating my hand. When discussing the idea of the Welsh gods with my various Welsh friends, there does seem to be a lesser emphasis on the deities in comparison to that of the Norse or Greek pantheon/paganism. Connecting with the spirits, as Stella has mentioned, seems to be more common, but also connecting through the Welsh spirits through creative means, such as singing, writing, or the creation of art. There are several godlike beings, or at least individuals who act as subjects of reverence within Welsh mythology, but it doesn't seem they quite fit into a box of what most people would consider a polytheistic deity. Much like the Irish pantheon, the Welsh pantheon is tied greatly to the idea of the other world that exists alongside of ours, where the magical beings live. And individuals from the other world, such as Rhiannon, can also have magical powers in many different aspects, but can also travel and take part in the lives of people from our world. Notably, it should also be said that the view of the Welsh gods could be coming from more of the Christian lens that were provided through the Mabinogion, and that in the earlier days, these figures could have been much more deified and much more pagan than what were provided in these stories today. I would also like to say that not all Welsh people and people who practice Welsh spirituality will share the same viewpoint on who or what the deities within the Welsh beliefs are today. So how is, with language, the language of Welsh and your exploration into that, how does that affect your connection to the land as you learn more?
Well, as someone who isn't fluent in Welsh, the more that I learn about the Welsh spiritual traditions, they're all surrounding poetry, and the way that the Welsh language is curated isn't just about the word itself, but it's how that word complements another word and how it is said. With the Welsh mythology and the Welsh poetry, because I don't speak Welsh, I am not grasping or understanding it as much. So the more I learn, the more I understand that poem. Even though you could tell me that poem in English, when I understand the Welsh terms within it, I feel that poem.
What I want to know is how in the world do you make a fire here?
How do you make a fire here?
Everything's wet. That's where the magic comes in.
Yes.
They have to have some kind of magic to make a fire in this very, very moist place.
So we've arrived at the site, just behind this little mound. At the bottom of this rock face is where the spring is. So we will go and collect some water. And then to the left of it is this phallic stone that I've been talking about with some interesting things and a place to give an offering if you'd like to. And you'll see what I mean when we go to see it.
So an interesting question for you. What does giving an offering mean to you?
Wow. To me it's giving something that I value as a way to say hello to the space I'm in, because I don't, right now, I've come to meet the entire space, the entire area, not a specific being or god or entity. It's a little hello and thank you, really, a recognition. So I haven't just walked through, but I've left a little bit of me. And I think the more meaningful and the more valuable that offering is to you, the more connected to that space you will be, because of it feels that value that you've put on that object. Yeah, so it is a little bit of a trickle. As you can see, there is a stream being formed by here, and this stream goes all the way down to a bigger stream. When it has been torrential rainfall, all of this is practically a swamp. When it's really dry, there isn't much water coming out of it at all. But the reason that this is spring water that's okay to drink is because it's filtered through this rock. And of course it's raining, so that's filtering it through as well. But this is, often it's really hard to get to this bit. And you can see how like green and vibrant the life is around the spring. So this is a place where people have for thousands of years come on pilgrims to drink this water and cleanse with this water.
The site we are visiting today, Teran Den, is something that would be very easily missed to most people, even if you were hiking right by it. The closest example to this site in my travels, I think, is Teran Den up in the east coast of Scotland. Tucked away in Fife, many people would miss this, and many people have not traveled to it. But the moment you lock eyes to the central place of power, here at Teran Den, much like Teran Den, you will not be able to look away. I could see myself spending hours here, losing track of time and the sacred energies present that many people from the past must have felt as well. I have to give Stella a huge thanks for sharing with me this site, as well as for sharing it with you. You can find very little information on Teran Den online, and it appears that very little research has been conducted on it as well. So what do you believe this site would have been used for in the ancient past? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm going to give my professional opinion here looking at this, having seen several sites around the UK in particular. When looking at this, like some of them are definitely modern graffiti. Like, you know, this, you know, it's E, you know, EE something, you know, AB. These are obviously modern. This does look a bit modern as well, just because of the depth of it compared to everything else. But there are some over here that are very faded, and they obviously follow very similar styles to one another. So I'm assuming this is what, I'm assuming these faces are what was like special about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are obviously very new, but some of them are just totally unknown. And the reason and why that thing is carved that way with that line around it is just no one knows.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, like this face right here is really faded as well. And then this entire rock right here is very unique and kind of uncovered here. And I guess this is the phallus that we have been told about. But yeah, I would say comparatively to my experience at Teran Den, it's very comparable because Teran Den we're not entirely sure, because at Teran Den we're not entirely sure how old the rock face is. We think from the 1800s more than likely. Scholars seem to think from the 1800s. And so maybe this is from around the same period, but it's hard to tell. I mean, I doubt anyone's ever come out here and like done any studies on it. And from what I can tell, rock carvings in general are really hard to date very accurately. But because of just the amount of like symbols up here, it is really interesting. And clearly people come here a lot to leave offerings. Like even over here, there's a group of offerings as well on kind of this bed. And then there's some more carvings in here. And just in general, it does have a very interesting aesthetic to it, even if it's not ancient. Like even if this isn't from 2,000 years ago or whatever, it's still an important sacred site now. People are coming here to give offerings, to give prayers, to give gifts, and to leave their mark in this place. And that's ultimately what our ancestors were doing anyways, what the ancestors of Wales were doing anyways. And I think that's ultimately still very important. But these faces are very interesting. This one in particular, I mean, this does feel it's been here for a very long time. What is your professional opinion?
My professional opinion.
Professional YouTube opinion.
Well, professional YouTube opinion is that if you make a certain sound and shout it into there, it sounds great. Let me show you. Yeah. It sounded better for me. It sounded better for me.
All right, let's go in. We're going in. Oh, that does sound better. Oh.
Yeah, so this is a great example of people leaving offerings and not quite thinking about how that unnatural object is going to impact the natural space that they're offering to. But some things can be really meaningful, which is, it might not be a natural object that you're leaving, but down here there is a little plastic Yorkshire Terrier dog. Like that could have been an offering that was someone's nan might have owned that, and their nan might have passed away. So although it is an unnatural object, the meaning behind it might be a valuable offering to the faith folk or the spirits here.
So with that, I do want to actually have a section here talking about Welsh paganism today and answering a question of how would you practice it today based on this information. Well, first off, I would recommend traveling to Wales if you do not live there. No matter what form or flavor of paganism you're wishing to connect with, the best way to experience it is to walk the lands of those ancestors. Secondly, I recommend learning some Welsh. The biggest gateway to any of the Celtic branches of belief is to understand the language of the people that used to sing to these spirits thousands of years ago. The Celtic languages are very old. The very act of speaking them will give you a deep connection to their identity and spirit. Now third, the most obvious thing is to read and understand the history of Wales. Pick up a copy of the Mabinogion and some other books about Welsh history to have a deeper connection with the story of Wales. Next, I would recommend be creative. If I've learned anything from my Welsh friends, they're all in general very creative people. Something about the Welsh spirit inspires creativity. So express yourself, sing, play music, draw, write, create. For me in this moment, I would describe the Welsh spirit as creativity. And to dive even deeper, I would recommend adding Welsh themes to your creative works, whether that's through the Welsh language or dedications to the Welsh spirits or beings. Another big piece of advice I would give you is to honor your local spirits, because I've learned that no matter your location, it is clear one of the most natural connections to the everyday people of Wales is the spirits of the land. So even if you do not live in Wales, connect with the land through offerings, prayer, and time spent in the embrace of nature. And if you want to feel more connected to Wales, I would recommend doing this on a wet and rainy day. Finally, I would recommend bringing all of these elements together into a small ceremony. Go into nature, express your creativity using the Welsh language and giving an offering of gratitude to the land while reflecting on the Welsh mythologies. This is something I can recommend to anyone looking to dive deeper into paganism from anywhere in the world. Simply change the Welsh language and mythologies out for whatever traditions you are trying to connect and build a deeper connection with. We've lost the knowledge of how to give offerings. We don't have elders teaching us, taking us to the spot and saying, here, youngling, this is how you give an offering to the sacred rock and stuff. Like, we just don't have that anymore. You know, hey, you can do that. You have a child. You can take them here on pilgrimage and show them the ways. And I think that's what the world needs, no matter where it is, whether it's here in Wales or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, like, my intuitive offering today is, let me get it out of my pocket, but I'm bringing a quartz crystal found in a local woodland to me. So another reason that I give offering actually is because I feel like I'm sharing a little bit of where I'm from or where I've come from with where I now am. So for me, I'm like, this is from a very important forest that I love. Like, I'm like sharing a little bit about myself with the place.
Yeah.
That's how I see this particular offering. But like, as I've said, there's different reasons depending on where and the day.
Yeah.
For me, with why I'm offering. Why? What do you see offering as?
For me, I see the act of giving offering as a chapter marker in life. Like, it's a way to pause ourselves and to reflect and say, you know, I'm giving this apple, this bite of something, this tobacco, because right now is important, because I'm praying, because I'm grateful. And it gives us a moment to slow down. And I think that's a lot of what religion is slowing down to think about what we need to work on, what we want to do. And so whether you believe in gods and deities and spirits and all this stuff doesn't matter as much to me as having something that you reflect, because we all need to heal. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, Christian, Muslim, pagan, whatever. We're all looking for that path of healing. And taking a moment to give an offering, to reflect, to be grateful, I think is our way of acknowledging that healing journey and taking that moment to make that chapter marker in our journey.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I agree. And it's also sharing that moment with the space. So like, this is a chapter marker for me of bringing you here, like bringing someone here who really cares about this stuff.
A filthy American.
Yeah, there's someone else who just cares about this stuff, man. And you know, this crystal means a lot to me. Actually, I was looking and I was like, I'd really like to keep that one. But that to me is a signal. You know, you should that's probably the offering that you should give. That's just personal for me. You know, I'm not saying for you to give away your most prized possessions, but sometimes if you don't do that, the fairies aren't very nice.
Believe it or not, my time with Stella only lasted for less than 8 hours, as I had to continue my drive to catch the ferry to go to Ireland. I have done a lot of reflecting and thinking on my time with her and my experiences in Wales, as well as my many conversations I've had with my various Welsh friends. That, tied with this research I have done for this video, I hope has created an inspiring video for you that will hopefully help some in Wales connect more with their heritage and land on a deeper level. And for those not in Wales who are interested in Welsh mythology and belief, I hope this gives you some inspiration to learn even more. Thank you so much to Stella for her time and words, and please show her some love and give her a follow on Instagram and here on YouTube. Finally, I will leave with you my reflections after dropping Stella off and heading north to my adventures in the Emerald Isle. This land is beautiful in its own way. Much like Scotland, it's lots of hills, lots of big valleys, but you can tell at one point it was all forested, or a lot forested. And so to go through here now and to realize, and also a lot of the lakes here are water reservoirs that I believe are flooded villages. I think that's happened a few times here. I know one time in particular it happened. An entire village was removed in North Wales, I think it was. The village was completely kicked out of its where it's lived. I mean, they were rehoused, but kicked out of their ancestral home, all to flood an entire village to make a water reservoir for, I think, Liverpool or Manchester or one of the other bigger cities in England. And so the people here have still been affected by the British, by the English. But the reason I'm here and the reason I wanted to film this video, I mean, I had such a short window to film a video like this, and in just a few hours really in my time here, is quite madness. But the reason I did it is because I've met so many amazing Welsh people, like Stella, like my friend Panda, who loaned me this camper van. All these people love this land, love the mythology of this land. We're birthed from it, and can feel that energy and that call. I can't necessarily feel that, and I feel it's because I don't have that connection to the land, or maybe it's because I just haven't spent enough time here or found the right location. But I know they have this same feeling that Stella talked about with that Welsh word that I can't remember now. People feel that here in Wales, and it's often a place that most people don't even know exists as its own independent country. And so that was the main reason I wanted to make this video, is to make people more aware of the individualness of the Northern European world, of the Anglo-Celtic Isles. There's just so much individuality and so much nuance to all the aspects up here. And there is this idea, and I know one of the people that have said it in the past as well, but we really don't have that much information about paganism. But there is at the same time, because there's so many different cultures with some surviving evidence of their mythology, of their folklore, of their ancient sites and traditions and holidays. It exists everywhere, and in places like Wales, I think it's very quickly disappearing, and it's up to people like Stella, like my friend Panda, to preserve these things for the next generation, to share them and bring them into modern ritual and ceremony, so that we can learn from the ancient past, so we can learn from the ancestors about what they were discovering about their native land, and how that can help us now in our modern era, where we desperately need a change for the better, so we can have a better and more beautiful future, more connected to the land, especially lands like here in Wales. So thank you very much for joining me for this adventure. I don't know when this video is coming out, but like I said, I have a lot more coming with Ireland that is going to be very similar style to this, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. But I need to finish my drive to Ireland, so I'm on my way to Anglesey now to catch the ferry to begin my adventures across Ireland. So I will see you in the next video here at the Wisdom of Odin, and I'm very excited to share with you all that is to come from the ancient world here in Northern Europe.